It's the first panel of the year. We're going to talk about some of the most polarizing prospects, including Ron Holland, Montas Buzelis, Reed Shepherd, and some more, coming up on Locked On NBA Big Board. What's up, everyone? My name is Rich Stayman. You probably know me better as Mavs Draft. I'm joined by Leif Thulin, one of the smartest college basketball fans that I know. And then we also have Rafael Barlowe's brother, James Barlowe, who is an amazing follow if you don't follow him already. Rafael does great work, but so does James. Really good draft mind. Also, if you haven't been listening to his episodes as well over the last few months, they have been fantastic. We all want to thank you very much for making us your first listen of the day. It means a ton to all of us. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 with any $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. This is our first panel, I would call it, that we've done, this little roundtable that we've done. I know we did this back in the day with Rafael as well, and I found it to be fascinating. It was pretty much like we give a thumbs down, thumbs up, thumbs across, where we stand on some of these polarizing prospects. There's a lot of guys. Who do you guys see? We'll start with you, James. Who do you see as the most polarizing prospect in this class?
He is on the rundown list. I'm going to go with Zachary Risachet. For me, the most polarizing guy. Well, my opinion versus everybody else's opinion is polarizing. So, yes, it would be him.
I'm assuming you're low on him.
Yeah. Not the biggest fan. I think he's limited. Can he shoot? Yes. But when he's not making shots, what do you get? And I can't take somebody in the top 3, maybe even 5. He can't put the ball on the ground and make plays. And again, guys can get better. I just haven't seen anything that's like trending towards that.
Yeah, I mean, I hear that completely. We'll dive into Risachet in a bit. What about you, Leif?
Yeah, I would say the most polarizing just in general based on consensus of all the people I've read their stuff. I try not to look at other people's boards too often, but once I talk about mine, other people say this is where I have him. It's Ron Holland. Like James and I talked about it in a previous episode. We each had him 3rd on our respective boards. And then there's going to be people that had him 12. Like the Ringer is very like well regarded, and he's 11th on the Ringer. I looked at another one; he's 12th, and I thought, well, that guy was supposed to be in the running for number 1. To fall to 12 is pretty crazy. And then we have him, like 2 of us have him at 3, and I know you've liked him a lot as well in this process, Richard. So I'd say he's probably among all draft people, he's probably the most. He's got the largest discrepancy in his range.
Yeah, I mean, Rafael's talked about this before, where he said to me, like, draft Twitter loves Ron Holland for the most part. I think a lot of us are really big on him and think, it's easy to see the tools and the upside, but NBA teams are pretty low on him. Like if you look at a lot of the sourced mock drafts, they have him closer to 10 than really 5 or 3. So he is very polarizing. That's a good one. We'll dive into him first, but my answer, I would chime in on this actually, is somebody who's not on this list, and that's Cody Williams. We can dive into him at the end if there's some time, but I think he's somebody that just, there's a lot of upside and there's a lot of downside to him. And also, I don't think he'd be getting as much upside praise if his brother wasn't a top 75, 50 player in the league. So I think he's somebody
higher than that for Jalen. I think he's a top 30 player in like half a minute. Like once he takes over one of these playoff games, he's gonna rise to that. But just one quick thought I want to get from you guys. So if we were to compare the 3 players we just mentioned, Risachet, Holland, and Cody Williams, I bet you that I think 2 of us, I bet James and I have the same order. I don't know if you do, Richard, but I bet if you were to compare all the listeners on the board between those 3, I bet the order would be different 1, 2, and 3 on all those guys. And so I personally go Holland, Williams, Risachet. But if you were to look at like the big boards at the beginning of the year, it would probably be the exact opposite order.
Yeah, I mean, I go a different order too, but I completely agree. That's why this class is so fascinating. Why don't we start on somebody I think that all of us agree on? You guys already kind of touched on it with Ron Holland. I think we're all generally at the same spot, so this might be the quickest one. So you guys both like Holland. You guys make the pitch. I'll make the pitch against, but James, I'll let you do it since the Leaf kind of already went. But what's your pitch in favor of Ron Holland?
18 years old, learning a new position. He's very raw, but he went from the 4 his whole life to playing the 3. He's showing you that he can put the ball on the ground. The jump shot isn't great, but it's not broken. And then if you look at guys like, I've mentioned this with Leif, I mentioned it with my brother, coming out of college, what was R.J. Barrett good at? He was playing hard, right? Wasn't a great ball handler. He's a better passer than Ron is right now. Ultimate swing for the fences. Coming out of college, what was Jaylen Brown good at? So it's like you have the athleticism, you have the motor, you have the tools. It's going to come down to, for me, is Ron going to get in the right situation that's going to continue to help him develop, or is he going to be in a situation where I'm like, hey man, just go play basketball? Now, if he's going to go out there to just go play basketball, then maybe you see some of the things that you would not like to see from him, and he just keeps piling on. But if he's in a good situation, I like his talent, I like his upside. I think he has obviously the best front in the draft, like by far. And I think worst case scenario, he can be a guy that can say, you know what, go give me 18 to 20 a game. We don't have to run a lot of plays for you.
Yeah, that's a strong pitch. I agree. I think there is some, if the frame measures poorly at the combine, I think his stock is going to go down pretty badly.
What's poorly to you?
I think if he measures at 6'6", like that's a huge blow, because right now, I personally look 1 inch between 6'6" and 6'7", it wouldn't bother me, but I think it's just how NBA teams would see it, where it's like, okay, the modern wing is somewhere between 6'7" to 6'9". Ron being on the small side at 6'6", playing some power forward over his career, how does that scale down? And then also just the decision making. I ultimately buy it. Like, again, I have Ron Holland second on my board, but a case against him would be like the decision making is not so great. There are a lot of times where he dribbles into the paint with 3 guys on him and he still takes the shot. So that is a big issue. And then also, how real is the jump shot? Free throw percentage is good. It's a really strong indicator, but the form needs a lot of work. Like, his shot is far away. Does it ever come back around? I mean, I've seen people compare him to like Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, which feels like an absolute extreme. But I don't see it, but there is an outcome where like his low end is just like maybe a defensive specialist.
Right. Or like I had mentioned it before, let's say worst case scenario, it doesn't work and he's like Josh Okogie, right? Because coming out of Georgia Tech,
I said that on my podcast today.
Yeah. Josh was athletic, great first step. He just was like, he just played hard.
Yep.
And he averaged like 17 as a young freshman as well, too. So
yeah, it's funny you should say that, because I'm filling in on Locked on Jazz for David Locke, and his whole pitch is analytically based. He hasn't watched these guys, but he says there's 3 or 4 players that just kind of analytically rule themselves out in the top. And he talked about Castle. He talked about Holland and Buzelis in terms of their shooting. And those are the reasons some of those guys are on the polarizing list here. And so I made the pitch of, look, he's one of the most high ceiling guys, kind of lower floor. If he hits as a shooter, I think he could be one of the guys who has all-star potential. And we talked about that on the episodes we did earlier this week. But then I said, what if he doesn't shoot well at all and everything stays kind of clunky form-wise, and he shoots the 25, 30%, and he's a dare shooter and he's a defender? Who is he? And I said Josh Okogie. So the reason that I would say I'm hesitant to put Ron Holland as high as I have him is because my philosophy is typically reliant on, I like to draft potential. Like, if I'm drafting in the top 4, I'm trying to get the home run. But I just don't think there's home runs in this draft. There might be a double, there might be a single, but you're not getting a home run. So maybe I need to temper it and scale it more towards high floor guys than high ceilings, like I typically do. And so I'm wondering if a guy like Cody Williams will surpass Holland for me, even though Holland's been higher throughout the entire process.
Yeah, Cody Williams doesn't check out as analytically strong. I don't know it's tough to tell with the G League because that stuff's not as readily available as colleges. I mean, there's Bart Torvik is right there with everything on college analytics. So it makes it a little bit tougher with G League, but I think Cody grades out kind of mediocre at best, but I think Holland would finish above him. So overall with Holland, where would you guys have him? Thumbs up, thumbs down, or thumb across? I go thumbs up.
Yeah, I'm mostly thumbs up. I have a little bit of a pause since it's not film related. It's just theoretical in my head of late when I talk about ceiling versus floor. His ceiling I like a lot more than some guys, but typically when I'm drafting in the top, I want a guy that can be an all-star. And I think he's one of the guys who could be an all-star, but his floor is a lot lower than some of the guys I project to be good role players. Like, I'm not very high on Risashe, but his archetype, like if you were to say the top of that archetype is Michael Porter Jr., the next guy in that type of archetype that I think he's more like is maybe Cam Johnson. And that's a lot safer than having Josh Okogie be kind of the floor guy for Ron Holland.
I agree.
Yeah, I think that's completely fair. I'm excited to go over Risashe and a bunch of the next guys as well. But first, let me tell you about DoorDash. Mother's Day is coming up this weekend on Sunday. And if you want to make your mom smile, start Mother's Day with flowers or surprise her with gifts from the brand she loves, delivered the very same day with DoorDash. DoorDash, right now, if you can get all your Mother's Day gifts all in one place, you can get 50% off your next order, up to $15 when you spend $15 on or more on your next flower, convenience, grocery store, retail order with code LOCKEDONNBA. That's code LOCKEDONNBA, all one word. You can order using DoorDash today. Terms apply. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster for free. I personally have used LinkedIn Jobs for my 9-to-5. It has done wonders for me. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire, gives you access to professionals you can't find anywhere else. LinkedIn does all that, making the process easy and intuitive. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnba. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnba to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day and you have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make sure to switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming and drama. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So back here with James Barlowe and Leif Thulin, we got the three of us back here talking about some of the most polarizing players. We left off with Ron Holland on the G League. Let's pick right back up with the G League. Where do you guys stand on Matas Buzelis? I personally, I'll start off with this. I'm not super high on him. I think he's extremely theoretical. In high school, he was really strong. He really struggled to adapt to the G League. Leif, what do you think of Matas?
I think he's a guy with a decent floor, just from the sense of he's 6'11", and he's playing the 2 guard, in my opinion. So defensively, which a lot of people will say, well, he doesn't project well as a good defender. I think you can cover up for a lot of those liabilities with just length. Like you can rebound the ball for your position, and he can pass the ball, and he can create mismatches on offense with that length. So I think that covers up for a lot of issues. I don't think he's a good shooter. And now the question becomes, how do you employ someone that's not a very good shooter? It isn't quite a point guard, but does like the ball in his hands. And so I don't think his potential's got as much ceiling as someone like Ron Holland, but I do think his base, his floor is probably a little safer. And that's why I lean towards Holland, because like I said, I tend to prioritize the player I believe has more upside. But I'm a little worried about Buzelis. I remember when people had him number 1 in the G League showcase before Sarr exploded. I was like, man, Holland's better. Even if he doesn't shoot well, at least he impacts the game. And so I can't unsee that. But the more I think about floor, I get a little worried with some of these guys I have higher due to upside.
Yeah, what about you, James?
You know what? It honestly depends on when you ask me what day of the week, what month of the year, the draft cycle. Like I've been up and down on Matas, and I'm kind of like, I have him 7th right now. And it's just so much to like be desired. It's like he puts the ball on the ground, but he's not a good ball handler. I think he dribbles straight up and down, and he lacks core strength. But when I saw him in person, he looked like he was like physically developed. So like, it's not he doesn't have his grown man body yet. Like he has his grown man body, and he just can't get low. Then, like you said, he's supposed to be billed as a shooter, but he's not making shots. And then like I think he can pass, but it's not because he's limited off the dribble. How much of a passer is he going to be? he's probably going to be a ball mover instead of a playmaker. And I just feel like in traffic, he's not super athletic. Now he'll surprise you. You know, he'll catch a fast breaker. He catches a clean, like, rip through. He'll jump out the gym, but I just don't. He's very decisive to me. I have him at 7th. I don't know what he quite to be because, again, he's supposed to be a shooter. He didn't shoot the ball well. Some people thought he was going to be a point forward. I don't think he can go by anybody. And I think he's going to have to play the 4 offensively because he's not a great athlete. But if he can't shoot the ball like we thought he would be able to shoot the ball, it kind of like limits him as a playmaker, ball handler. So it's like I get the upside, but at the same time, I just wasn't happy with what I saw from him in the G League Ignite. But I will say, while he does have defensive like limitations, he does compete on defense.
Yep.
Right. So you'll take that. And you can hide him on depending where he gets drafted. He'll guard the 3-and-D guy that doesn't move, right? Or he'll guard the 4 who is not an athlete, but he does compete, and I'll take that. So I'm on the fence with him.
Yeah, I'm right there with both of y'all. I have him at 10. We talked about how he's not really a shooter, but he's billed that as one. He shot 27% from 3 this year, 71% from the line. That's per synergy. So they combine the regular season and the showcase and all that. So not very good. Like, that's not very high shooting upside, even though he is almost 7 feet tall. But like it just, he's all theoretical. And also, I just kind of like what you said, James, the handle. I'm not really bought in. Like, I wrote that it's okay at best. Like, he has some moves, but they're turnover prone so easily.
Yes.
Everything he does, he walks right into traffic way too easily. And that, to me, negates a lot of the ball handling skills. And also, I just don't think he, like you said, he competes. It's a weird thing because he competes on defense really hard, but he's also like just almost scared of physicality. And it's a weird thing for me. Like, I just don't know how to blend him together. So thumbs down, thumbs up, thumb across. Where y'all at? I'm like, I think I'm just about thumbs down on him. I'm not gonna lie.
I feel like Joaquin Phoenix in what was the movie Gladiator?
Yeah. Yeah, that is probably the closest one for me. I think this next one will be pretty easy with Reed Sheppard from Kentucky. We all got really strong opinions on him. Like, this is a guy who is very polarizing because he's a 6'2", 6'3" combo guard. But for somebody who doesn't play defense, he records a record amount of defensive stats, almost 4 stocks per game, steals plus blocks, 50+% from 3, but not a point guard. James, what do you think of Reed?
I like Reed Sheppard. I know exactly what I'm going to get from him. I feel like the time at Kentucky gives you a good glimpse of who he is. Now, somebody had him at number 1 at one point. That's crazy. I think was it. I don't want to call out names. I know he was really, really high. I don't want to, everybody's opinion is different. Somebody probably trash me in the comments. That's fine. But I understand what Reed Sheppard is. In my head, Reed Sheppard is like a 6'2" Malcolm Brogdon drilled down, where he can play on the ball for a moment. He can play off the ball for a moment. And I feel like he's a good rotation guard. I've mocked him to Houston so many different times because I feel like, with he would play very well next to Jalen Green, next to an Amon. He would like complement those guys, right? So whether he's a super 6 or he's just like your starter who's really good, who's good, not get it. I'm buying the shooting, and it's kind of hard to say a guy can't defend when he gets like steals and blocks. It's weird. But he finds a way to have some kind of impact. But like, I had him mocked, I believe, at 8 or 9, and I like him there. And is he what is it? He shot like 50% from the 3-point line. He's not a 50% 3-point shooter, no. But I still buy him as a really good guard.
See, I'm the lowest of the bunch on Reed, and it's not because I don't think he can play. Like, I think he understands the game very well. I think he's a really good shooter, probably the best shooter in the class, despite, like, I don't think his value as a shooter is as high as some just because he's smaller. But I think the teams that are taking him in the top 10, especially if someone takes him 5 through 7-ish, which is, I think, the highest he actually feasibly goes, are the teams banking on him being a point guard? And I think that's a little rich for my blood because it's conjecture. Are you picking him based on what he's done or prediction? And everyone has some sort of like, oh, Kentucky guards. Like no one knew for sure Tyrese Maxey was going to be as good as he was. But you could at least know like, hey, he shot 29% from three at Kentucky, but he had all the traits. He just was missing shots. Shepard shot the lights out. You're bound to regress there, as James just pointed out. He hasn't played the point guard, and you'd be like, well, he had Dillingham, but many people have him above Dillingham, so make that one make sense to me if he's playing not his position. But then the player he reminds me of, and I phrased it this way on Locked On Jazz today, was if you were to like think about a draft and you're taking someone 5 through 11, I've got him 11th on my board, and I assume 5 is about as high as you're going to find him, is you're typically picking for a high-end role player. I see him more of like a Peyton Pritchard, of someone who plays a role and does well in his role, but that's scaled down. And I know Pritchard's on a really good team, but he's like the 8th man. And that's the type of pick you're okay with in this draft at 11. But I still don't want that player super high because I don't think his upside's high. I think his floor is pretty high just because you know what you're going to get in terms of his shooting, but I don't think you know what you're going to get whatsoever from the point guard spot. And I think you do know he's not going to be a good on-ball defender in the NBA. He's more of a anticipation type of defender.
Yeah, I got nothing to add. You guys tackled everything. I hate the Peyton Pritchard one because it does sound true. I hate it because I have him 3 on my board. So that being said, and I'll back that up real quick. I can't just go off of that.
Yeah. Please do.
I just feel like I value floor a ton. I think he's somebody that is going to be impossible to play off in the playoffs despite being small, because he has so much defensive activity and he just knows what to do. And intelligent players on the defensive end find a way to stick in the playoffs, especially if you have that offensive skill. I also think he's just such a good decision maker that even if he is just a, like a Peyton Pritchard type, like that decision making goes such a long way. I also do think Peyton Pritchard would be better if he had more reign, more freedom. So that also comes down to it. But I'm also not a huge Peyton Pritchard fan, so I hate hearing that. But I have him 3. So thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs across. Where are we? I got thumbs up. We got Leif is the thumbs down. James and I are thumbs up pretty clearly. But
I love watching him play. I just don't think you can pick a point guard to be a point guard that hasn't been a point guard, and that be like the upside part. Like the reason he's polarizing for me is that you're projecting him to play a position he didn't play even in college. And he's small, so if he plays his natural position, he's considered diminutive and makes your backcourt kind of really have to, or your wings have to be enormous to make your pitch. So I think you have to thread the needle if you're picking a guy like Shepard, who I compare to Pritchard.
Yeah, I think that's fair. You can't put him somewhere like Portland. Well, we still got a couple more guys to get through, including Zachary Risichet and Nikola Topic, the European guys. But first, let's pause here to talk more about Monopoly Go. In Monopoly Go, you can team up with your friends for time tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock, and there's so much to get, including unique stickers that you can trade with friends to complete albums for big prizes, cool new pieces, playing pieces to travel the boards with, hilarious emojis for taunting friends for when you smash their buildings or heist their vaults. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every single day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton include their own unique mini games like digging for treasure or robot pachinko machine. And there's always new timed events that help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win on rent frenzies. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go. So go get off the bench and go download it now for free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on. All right, last segment. We got some international guys to go through. James, I'm letting you take the lead on this one. Zachary Risichet at the very beginning. If you've been listening the whole episode and you didn't just jump to Zachary Risichet, James said that was his absolute most polarizing player. Go ahead and the floor is yours, James.
So, if this is your first time hearing me talk about him, I've had him as high as 4 because he was shooting like 48% from 3, right? And that's not realistic, but it was like January or something like that. So that's where we were during that time. Now he's cooled off a lot. And again, my thing, if I'm like Leif says, I want upside, I want talent. I don't see playmaking. I don't see ball handling. I don't see high free throw rate. I see a stand in the corner guy who 6'9", 6'10". He can shoot, but like, what do you do when you can't make threes? And again, this is my first time being on the air with you guys. I can say hate now because Kendrick Lamar made hate cool. I hate 3-and-D guys. I really do, man. Because when you're not, we live in Dallas, Rich. Those guys are not making threes. What do? We dare you to shoot. You're just standing there and you're on a treadmill. I can't stand them. I don't like those guys. And I had mentioned last year, I'm getting long-winded, but like Miami doesn't play 3-and-D guys in a sense, right? Duncan Robinson couldn't play because all he could do is shoot threes. Now not this season, but last season, he started to put the ball in the ground. He became playable. Caleb Martin was almost the Eastern Conference, MVP because he was putting the ball on the ground. Boston, they play Sam Hauser, but like their wings, I don't consider Derek White. He's not a 3-and-D guy. He can run offense. He can initiate. Long story less long. I want my top 3 pick to score, make guys better, put the ball in the ground. The shot is off. What are you going to do? A 7 of 19 game from Ricochet means he probably scored 19 points, right? I want my 7 of 19 guy to get me 25 still because he got to the foul line. And I don't feel comfortable with him being a top 3 pick if that's all he can do is shoot.
I'm acquire.
Yeah, I mean, I'm right there. One of my biggest things with scouting is I've talked about this on a lot of episodes on here, is what do you do when your best skill is off that game? If your defense is bad, how are you bringing value to the table? So you're preaching to the choir as well here with a lot of that, where it's like, okay, what do you do when your shot isn't falling? I actually love his defense personally. So I do think there is a lot of value, especially at like 6'10". There's not a world where I'm taking him any 3 if you have the ideal situation and someone that's like a play, like somebody in 10 to 14 jumps. That would be the only way I'm taking him top 3. I've never understood why he's really the top pick for a lot of these places, mocks, like the big ones that have sourced information. I don't get it. I'm right there with you. Leif, did you have anything else to add, or do you want to go to Toppage?
Well, let me ask one thing real quickly about this type of player. So I mentioned at the outset that the best archetype of this player is Michael Porter Jr., right?
Right.
Michael Porter Jr. is a really good player, but when he was coming out, he probably would, and that was a really good draft class. He would have been a top 5 pick, and that's generous. He could have very well been number 1. Michael Porter Jr. is a better athlete than Ricochet prior to injuries, and he's been arguably the best shooter in the NBA right now. Granted, he gets great looks from Jokic. So, and that guy's not an all-star. So if you're drafting, you can't even make the upside pitch for Ricochet. Now, I do think his floor is actually pretty high, and I explored this today when I brought up that whole Cam Johnson argument earlier. Like, if you think of who are the players that are touch under a Michael Porter Jr., and maybe it's they're younger in their development or they're older and they're just not quite as talented, I think Cam Johnson's one of the elite marksmen. But he's paid $24 million to score 13 and shoot 39 from 3, and that's really good. So that type of player is in vogue, and I do think that I don't want my top 3 guy to be a 3-and-D who's reliant on just hitting threes, but I do think I have him at 8, and I thought that was as high as I'd put him. But there's a world in which if I shift my thoughts from thinking, okay, I want home runs 1 through 3, and then 4 through 6, I want doubles, to continue that baseball. Now, if I think of it, okay, there's singles and doubles right there. I still think he's kind of a single. And so there's a chance I move him up just because his floor is higher than I initially thought, because those type of players that shoot that well or had the indicators of shooting that well hardly have failed.
Yeah, I think that's fair. So thumbs up, thumbs down, or thumbs across? Did all 3 of us say thumbs across, or was that a thumbs down?
Yeah,
all 3 of us said thumbs across. It is just very much like, yeah, he's nice. I agree with every one of y'all's points, though. Like,
I have him at 10, so I don't hate him. I'm not saying he's going to be a bust. It's just that if he showed me he could play like just a little bit of pick and roll, right? And again, I understand they especially overseas, they're trying to win. We're not trying to develop, right? So I get that. But like, and he's not the same player, but like Pacome Dadier, right? He shows that he can put the ball on the ground, even in the little bit of opportunity that he does to get to put the ball on the ground, right? So it's not just they have me boxed into this role. It's just like I just don't see it. And, again, if Detroit somehow falls out of the top 4 or 5, like he fits in Detroit, right? Because he can supposed to be able to shoot. He can play the 4 and then he's shooting. But like if he goes to like Washington, good luck, because you're gonna you expect him to be a top 3 pick and you expect him to be great, and that's just not what he's going to be as like a scorer.
Yeah, I agree with that. Let's get to the last one. Nikola Topic. He's over in Europe, going to be turning 19 a month and a half after the draft, so he's pretty young. Leif, how much of Nikola Topic have you seen? Where you want him?
I really want him, but I think part of it's theoretical. So the thing about Topic is I think he's got a chance to be the best player in this class if his shot comes around, because he's got a unique blend of offensive potency. He's an 89th percentile pick and roll guy at 18 years old that is 6'6". So think about the players that are 6'6" and run pick and roll in the NBA. There's not too many of them that run a ton of it. Like the player that I think he most resembles is not Luka, his countryman, obviously. But like people are going to conflate that. So I want to eradicate that. But he's kind of like Josh Giddey in the sense that he can run around a pick and roll and create. And there's a lot of people pretty infatuated by Giddey, but now Giddey is thinking or I guess I'd be thinking, if I'm Josh Giddey, I'm probably the odd man out in Oklahoma City. He doesn't factor into their future. That's because he doesn't shoot it well enough. So if Topic can punish defenses for playing drop coverage or going under screens, he becomes a better version of Josh Giddey, who I think is an even better pick and roll decision maker. I think the way he processes the drop offs or versus lobs or kick to shooters is really advanced. So there's a reason I think he has got an all-star potential. It's higher than some of these guys, but I do think it's harder for him to just coexist with other players than a lot of these other guys. It's like if he's not the guy with the ball, I have my questions about, is Topic meant to be on the NBA basketball court? Not as like he won't make the NBA. I'm not saying anything like that, but I'm saying, does he start if he's not on the ball? And how many teams are going to have their guy that they draft presumably in the top 5-7, not be on the ball? So that's why he's the most polarizing guy in my opinion.
What about you, James?
I like him. I like him a lot. I think I'm a big fan of ball handling tall guys who can pass.
Me
right?
too.
He's got the vision. He gets downhill. He's a creative finisher. He finishes not above the rim, but he finishes at the rim. I think he has good speed in the half court. Is he a break you down guy in switches? Maybe not, but I feel like if he comes down and he gets downhill, I trust him to make the right play. And again, if he ends up being Josh Giddey in this draft, I will take it. If Josh Giddey wasn't in Oklahoma City, where that timeline speeds up every single day, we're talking about 15, 6, and 6. So if we put, and I even think I'm gonna disagree with you, Leif. I feel like if you put him on a bad team and he has to play off the ball some, I still think he can be effective. Now I don't think he rebounds like Giddey, but at the same time, let's just say Portland. I don't feel like, they have other guys that need to move out the way, but I feel like he would still get an opportunity to be a secondary ball handler just because he's such a good passer and he's such a good playmaker. Like you, as a coach, you have to scheme him on the ball some. And you have to think, if he's in Portland, Simons can play off the ball because he's a very good three-point shooter. Shaden is an athlete. He cuts, he dunks, he can play. How it works with like Scoot, obviously somebody has to learn how to shoot between the two of them. But I just feel like his floor would be like a Josh Giddey type. And like if Josh Giddey didn't have a game tomorrow, we would be talking about one of the good young talents in the NBA because he's a triple-double threat who's a very good passer. And like I said, I like Topic. I think he has better shooting mechanics touch than Giddey. So he's not decisive to me. I have him number 2 on my board, and he's been number 2 basically the whole draft season for me.
Yeah, I worry I'm just like overthinking him because the free throw percentage is good, even though the shot doesn't look that good. It's flat. Like I don't buy the looks of it, but like there's too many upside indications there where I'm like, I just feel like I'm overthinking. Like you said, like he finishes at the rim and he does it with both hands. So like there's a lot to like. there's a lot of people that don't like him. I don't think he's super polarizing, so I'm kind of in between y'all. I feel like he's got an easy path if that jump shot really develops. So, but I do hear both y'all's concerns. Like, this is why this draft is not a popular and good one. Like, you can make the case just as strong for negative or positive for almost every one of these players at the top of the draft. So, last vote. Where are we on Nikola Topic? Thumbs up, thumbs down, or thumbs across? I think so. Leif is at the thumbs across, like tempting the thumbs up. I think James just talked him into it, and then James and I are at thumbs up. So
I have him number 4 because I think he's got crazy. Like, he's got probably the highest ceiling, in my opinion, of this class. But I just worry that the floor is significantly lower than other guys I consider with decent ceilings.
That's fair. I would also say watch the past Euro, like international youth games. Like, I think it was like the U18s, like a year or two ago. Watch those. He really stands out. So if you're looking for that, I think that's a good way to check him out too. But that's all the time we've got. Thank you so much for listening to Locked On NBA Big Board. For James Barlowe, Leif Thulin, and myself, Richard Stayman, we are out. And don't forget, check out Locked On Sports Today. It's free on Amazon Fire TV and YouTube, streaming 24/7. Thank you so much. And can't wait for the next one.